Hey, I'm Orrin Ross, estate planning attorney, and I talk a lot about estate planning. I say I'm an estate planning attorney, but I realize that I don't often explain what that means. So estate planning is basically where we're just planning for what happens when you're not able to take care of things for yourself, whether because you're incapacitated or you're just out of town or you pass away eventually. It's going to happen to us all. It's important to plan ahead so that you can decide what happens with your assets and we don't have a court decide that for you. So with estate planning, the most basic level of estate planning is what we call powers of attorney. So we have a financial power of attorney so that someone can pay your bills for you if you're ever incapacitated. And then we have a healthcare power of attorney, which is called the advance directive, and that's where you name an agent who can speak to your doctors, consent to surgery, all those sorts of things. So that's the most basic level. That's where you kind of want to start when you're 18. The next level would be getting a will in place. So you need a will if you have pretty much any asset. Because if you're an adult and you have any assets, including bank accounts, brokerage accounts, if you have a house, a car, we need to say what happens to those items if you pass away. So we would do that in a will. So a will is basically the blueprint for how we want your probate to go. So it tells the court who you want to be in charge, where you want things to go, and all the decisions about the rules that you've decided. So maybe you don't want them to have to put up a bond. Maybe you don't want your family to have to put together accountings. You can go through that and decide what you want. Then for the next level, you have what we call a living trust. So a living trust is where we put your assets in the name of this trust while you're alive, so that when you pass away, we don't have to go through the probate process, because it can take a really long time and it can end up costing a lot of money, especially if you have family members who don't really get along that well. Because if anyone contests your will and we have to go through this court process to figure out where things should go, it can take a really long time. And that's especially true now that we have the COVID era, because the courts are even slower than they normally were. So with a living trust, we can skip over that whole process and set everything up so that it's a smooth transition to your family members or whoever you want things to go to when you pass away. So anytime we set up a trust, we also create wills just in case. They're called pour-over wills. So they're designed to make sure that if anything wasn't in your trust before you passed away, that it gets poured over into the trust after you're gone. So it's kind of the safety net to make sure that everything eventually ends up in your trust. So estate planning is really important for pretty much everyone. It's not just for wealthy people. You want to have an estate plan, with at least a will and powers of attorney. If you're an adult and you're married, or you own a house, or you have a kid, you need all those things in place. And then the next level is the living trust level, and most people assume that you have to be rich to justify a living trust, but you don't, because it's easier and ultimately more cost effective to set up a living trust now, put all your assets in it, and simplify things when you and your spouse pass away, than it is to go through this long court process where your assets are frozen. We have to give notice to creditors. We have to let everybody know that you've passed away, have them come forward and say if they owe you money or you owe them money. So it's really not something that a lot of people want to do. So we can set up a living trust and avoid that whole situation. So whatever type of estate plan you might need, I can set it up for you. Whether you just need powers of attorney, or you need a will, or a trust, or maybe you have a trust from several years ago or another state, you want to have me look at it. I do free consultations for our estate planning clients. So if you'd like me to look your documents over, please give us a call. Our number is 678-250-4281, and you can find us at OrrinRossLaw.com.